Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Stotra Saptashishi Mad. His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnuvedaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastudade Shikarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, which I think is Further Inquiries by Vidura. Today we're doing text 38. Let's see. Okay, just give me a moment.
Share your screen.
Yeah, just give me a moment to get the page open. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to do this, but it'll only take a moment to call it up. Third canto, 7th chapter, text Further Inquiries by Vidura. Sorry about muddling around here. Text 38, there it is. And share, there we are. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay. Purushasya cha samsthanam swarupam vaparasya cha jnanam cha naigamam yattad guru shishya prayojanam. Purushasya cha samsthanam swarupam vaparasya cha jnanam cha naigamam yattad guru shishya prayojanam. Purushasya cha samsthanam swarupam vaparasya cha jnanam cha naigamam yattad guru shishya prayojanam. Everyone chant, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry. Purushasya sasamsthanam sarupam vaparasya cha jnanam cha nigamam yattat purushasya prayojanam.
Purushasya cha samsthanam swarupam vaparasya cha jnanam cha naikamam yattat guru shishya prayojanam.
Someone else? Okay, word for word translation. Purushasya, of the living entity. Cha, also. Samsthanam, existence. Swarupam, identity. Va, either or. Parasya, of the supreme. Cha, also. Jnanam, knowledge. Cha, also. Naigamam, in the matter of the Upanishads. Yat, that. Tat, the supreme. Guru, spiritual master. Shishya, disciple. Prayojanam, necessity. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. What are the truths regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are their identities? What are the specific values in the knowledge in the Vedas? And what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciples? Purport. Before I read the purport, I'm going to read the very last line of the purport, then I'll read the whole purport through. Prabhupada finishes off the purport by saying, that is the sum and substance of all the questions in this verse. So I just wanted to, point that out, that this relatively short purport really addresses all four of these questions of Vidura. Purport. The living entities are constitutionally servitors of the Lord, who can accept all kinds of service from everyone. It is clearly declared in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text 29, that the Lord is the supreme enjoyer of the benefits of all sacrifices and penances, the proprietor of all that is manifested, and friend of all living entities. That is his real identity. Therefore, when the living entity accepts the supreme proprietorship of the Lord and acts in that attitude, he resumes his real identity. In order to elevate the living entity to this standard of knowledge, there is the necessity of spiritual association. The bona fide spiritual master desires that his disciples know the process of rendering transcendental service to the Lord, and the disciples also know that they have to learn about the eternal relationship between God and the living entity from a self-realized soul. To disseminate transcendental knowledge, one must retire from mundane activities on the strength of enlightenment in knowledge in terms of Vedic wisdom. That is the sum and substance of all the questions in this verse. Purushasya cha samsthanam swarupam va parasya cha jnanam cha naigamam yattad guru shishya prayojanam. What are the truths regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are their identities? What are the specific values in the knowledge in the Vedas? And what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciples? Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. This is another fascinating section of the Bhagavatam. I'm really, like I said last time I gave class, I'm really enjoying the exchange between Vidura and Maitreya and their relationship and the give and take between them. It's really, really beautiful and exemplary. Vidura has been asking, he's already received a lot of instruction from Vidura, but actually the fact is that the more you learn, the more education you get, the more questions will come actually. So Vidura is now just finished presenting a long list of questions to Maitreya. about the nature of the world and organizing society and what's the living entity and the creation, so many things. Long list of questions, the past, I don't know, 8, 10, or a dozen verses. And now we're at the end of that list. Actually, tomorrow's verse is also a question, but Prabhupada phrases it more as a rhetorical question. So this is the last really philosophical questions that Vidura is putting to Maitreya. And they're so interesting, these questions, what they are and what they mean. He's asking, what is Purushasya Samsthanam? What is the complete, the full understanding of the position of the living entities? What is Swarupa Parasya? What is the actual identity, the actual nature, the actual form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What is Jnanam Nigama? What is the knowledge of the Vedas? And what is Guru Shishya Prayojanam? What's the necessity and what is the goal and the purpose of the guru-disciple relationship? So these are fascinating questions, 4 questions. We could group them into 2 groups of 2 questions. What is the nature of the living entity and what is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Those 2 questions together constitute what is known as Sambandha Gyan. What is the nature of Krishna? What is the nature of the living entities? And what is the relationship between them? This is Sambandha Gyan. Prabhupada speaks about Sambandha Gyan from a lecture. He says, there are 3 things in the matter of understanding God. First of all, you should know what is God and what I am. What is my relationship with God? Then, just like in business, you make agreement. Both party agrees that this is our relationship. You are supplier and I am consumer. You supply under such and such condition and I'll consume. That is called relationship. And as soon as the agreement established, our relationship is understood, then actual business follows. Then actual business. When you understand God, when you understand yourself, then the actual business will start. So this is Sambandha Gyan, understanding the nature of the Supreme Lord and the living entities. Purushasya Samsthanam and Swarupa Parasya. You understand that, then you understand the nature of that. And he said, Prabhupada says, then the actual business starts. What's the actual business? After Sambandha comes Abhideya. Abhideya means the actual practice of devotional service. So you understand your relationship with God, and then you think, yes, I want to cultivate that relationship. And that is Abhideya. That is the process of devotional service. Or as Prabhupada says, the actual business. So Sambandha Gyan is necessary and part of devotional service. But in another sense, I don't want to give the wrong impression by saying it's preliminary, but it's the foundation on which we build our structure of the practice of devotional service. Because without that understanding, you'll have no reason to engage in devotional service. Or even if you try to engage in devotional service without that proper understanding, you'll make so many mistakes and offenses and confusion will result. So this is the importance of Sambandha Gyan, which is embodied in these first 2 questions of Vidura. Another nice section about, let's see, about Sambandha in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu says, Veda Shastre Kahe Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana Krishna Bhakti Prema Tina Mahadan. So Veda Shastra, in all the scriptures, it talks about these 3 things: Sambandha, the nature of Krishna, the nature of the living entities, and the relationship between them; Abhideya, the actual process of devotional service, and prayojana, the culmination, the perfection of that practice of devotional service, which he says here is Krishna, Krishna bhakti, and prema. So Krishna means understanding the nature of Krishna, Krishna bhakti, practicing devotional service to Krishna, and prema, attaining actual love of Krishna. Teen Mahadan, these three things are the greatest wealth of the living entities. Mahadan means the greatest wealth. Or just like Prema Pumarta Mahan also says same thing, that love of Krishna is the greatest wealth for the living entity. So this is Sambandha Gyan. And then the third and fourth questions also go together in a single sort of concept. What is that again? Jnanam Nigama, understanding Vedic knowledge, and Guru Shishya Prayojanam, understanding and fulfilling the guru-disciple relationship. Just as the first two verses form a unit of Sambandha Gyan, these two questions also have a singular idea, and I'm sure there's a Sanskrit word for it, but in English we call this epistemology. What do we know and how do we know it? So in summary, Jnanam Nigama, Shastra is the source of knowledge, and Guru Shishya Prayojanam, as Prabhupada also said in the purport, guru-disciple relationship is the medium through which we understand that knowledge. So this is epistemology, or how we know what we know. So these questions are very nice, and we could also understand, since it's at the end of the list of questions, as the last set of questions, we could also perhaps assume that these are very important questions that are being asked, and we should take special note of them. So let's look at these one by one a little bit. Purushasya samsthanam. Purushasya, we know Purusha. Purusha means person. Purushatam is the supreme person. And we living entities, we're also sometimes referred to as Purusha, as persons. One, because we're personal by nature. And Prabhupada also would many times explain this, that there's two factors. There's Purusha and there's Prakriti. And in reality, the real Purusha is Krishna. And we're all Prakriti, in the sense that Purusha is the original person, and Prakriti, we are the energy, the expansion of Krishna, of that person. Purusha also means the enjoyer. And sometimes this Purusha and Prakriti, even gender is assigned to it, that Purusha is the supreme male and Prakriti is the female. Just like Krishna and Radha is Purusha and Prakriti, like that. But in the material world, whatever gender body you have, we're all aspiring as Purusha. Just like Prabhupada says in the very beginning of the purport, that the living entities will accept service from anyone. That we're in this material world will accept service from anyone. That one who accepts service is actually Krishna, and he's supposed to be the Purusha. He's the Purushatam, the topmost person. And we in the living entities, because we're trying to enjoy, because we want to exploit everyone and everything for our own enjoyment, and because we want to engage everyone in our service, we're also, in that sense, we're Purusha. So therefore, Purushasya samsthanam. And what's samsthanam? The other point is that Purushasya, because it's referring to the living entity as the Purusha, as the enjoyer, or the attempting to be enjoyer. This is specifically, we can understand, talking about the living entities within this material world, because the liberated souls have given up all sense of being Purusha and accept Krishna as their only Purusha, and accept their position as subservient to Krishna. So the conditioned living entities, Purusha. But what is their samsthanam? Sthana means their position, their existence. I think Prabhupada translates as existence. Sthanam is like your situation, your setting, where you're situated is sthanam. And samsthanam means you're complete, you're perfect, your ultimate standing or your ultimate situation. Because in this material world, just like going back to Purusha and this idea of male and female, in this material world, we're thinking, I'm male and I behave in this way or that way, or I think I am this or that because I'm male, or someone is thinking I'm female, so I'm thinking I'm this or that, or I'm like this or that. And the dog is thinking I'm a dog, and the tree is thinking I'm a tree, in so much as it can think at all. So this is sthanam. This is a situation, but it's not samsthanam. Just like I was reading recently in a reading group down here in Alachua, in the Kaliya, oh no, it was after the Kaliya pastimes, when Krishna is meeting with the gopis. And the gopis are saying about the flute. They're saying the flute is made of bamboo. And the bamboo is considered the son of the river. So the bamboo is male, classified as male. But how is it this bamboo, although it's male, it's so shameless that it's enjoying Krishna's kisses? So this is how this material gender identity doesn't necessarily apply, and especially doesn't apply in terms of us being Purusha, that we should give up this idea of being Purusha, of being the enjoyer, of being the center, of being the controller. So the gopis are saying the flute is male, but still it's enjoying, in a sense, not exactly, but in a sense, like the gopis who are female. So this gender barrier of Purusha and Prakriti melts away in the stage of transcendence, in the stage of samsthanam, one's complete, perfect, and transcendental situation. Or there's another story later, also in the 10th canto, when Krishna is enjoying with the gopis, and the demigods came in their, whatever, their flying birds or flying chariots or whatever vehicles they have, and they hovered in the sky to watch this amazing pastimes. And the wives of the demigods were feeling attraction to Krishna, so much so that they were exhibiting ecstatic symptoms, and their belts and saris were becoming loosened by seeing Krishna's pastimes and hearing his flutes. And because of that, they were embarrassed in front of their husbands, the demigods. But the demigods inside themselves, they were also feeling that same kind of attraction for Krishna by seeing his pastimes and hearing his flute play. They were feeling that same kind of attraction, and they actually became embarrassed, thinking, oh, we're men, but we're feeling this attraction. So the demigod men were embarrassed in front of their wives, and the wives were embarrassed in front of their husbands, because they were getting a taste of samsthanam, the perfection of their existence, of their nature, which has nothing to do with material condition, with material body, or material relationships, or any of these things, but is identifying oneself as the eternal servant of Krishna. Therefore, we say Jiver Sarupahai. Jiver Sarup is the same thing as Purushasya Samsthanam. What is the actual perfect, fully realized condition of the living entities? Jiver Sarupai, Krishna Nityadas, the eternal servant of Krishna. So when you give up the false sthanam, the false identities, a man, woman, American, Indian, Chinese, black, white, whatever species or group or religion or political, anything, when you give up those lesser sthanam and take up samsthanam, your actual identity, this is becoming a devotee. Let's see now. Right, so your eternal your eternal position, your actual position, gender, species, country, nationality, political identifications are not eternal stanam, are not eternal designations. I'm a male now. In my past life, was I male? Was I female? I don't know. Was I human or not? I don't know. And in the future, we won't be. Or I used to have one political affiliation. Now I have a different political affiliation. I used to consider myself in one religious group. Now I'm considering myself in a different religious group. So all of these things are changing, but samsthanam, that you're the eternal servant of Krishna, never changes, never goes away, never is temporarily can be covered, but is never actually superseded or replaced by any other false designation. So this is samsthanam. The first of the questions, what is samsthanam? Next question is, what is swarup parasya? Swarupa parasya. Swarup and samsthanam have almost the same meaning. Swarup means your own form, your real form, your actual identity. But this time, not asking that question of the Purushas, but asking it of the Parasya. And there's nice poetic sort of usage going on, that Purushya Samstanam and Swarupa Parasya. There's a nice poetic sort of use of the initial letters there going on. So Swarup Parasya, almost the same meaning as samsthanam. What is the actual identity, the real identity, the core identity of Parasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Parasya means the highest, the greatest. So naturally, he's talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What is Krishna's Swarup? Swarup is also an interesting word. Swarup means the main identifying characteristic of something. And it's often coupled in philosophical discussions with the word tatashta, that there's essential identity of something, essential description of something. And then there's tatashta, which are secondary descriptions of something which add to the understanding of what that thing being described is. So this is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, a nice short section I'd like to read here. Let's see. First, Mahaprabhu, he's instructing Srila Sanatana Goswami, and he says, quoting the Bhagavatam, the Lord does not have, so this is description of a Swarupa Parasya. Quote, the Lord does not have a material body, yet he descends among human beings in his transcendental body as an incarnation. Therefore, it is very difficult for us to understand who is an incarnation. Only by his extraordinary prowess and uncommon activities, which are impossible for embodied living entities, can one partially understand the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then in the next statement, he says, by two symptoms, personal characteristics and marginal characteristics, the great sages can understand an object. So the principal characteristics are Swarup characteristics, or Swarup Lakshana, and the marginal characteristics are Tatashta Lakshana. So what is the Swarup Lakshana? He goes on, bodily features, nature, and form are the personal characteristics. Knowledge of his activities provides the marginal characteristics. So this is also very interesting. Krishna's body, Krishna's nature, what is it? Krishna's bodily features, his nature and his form. This is his Swarup Lakshana. We understand Krishna. He's the most beautiful person. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his nature. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of everything. He's the controller of everything. Ekala Ishwara Krishna, Arasa Babritya. He's the one controller and everyone else is his servant. And understanding his beauty, like when we go to the temple and see the beauty of the deities and appreciate, this is Swarupa, understanding Swarupa Parasya, the complete nature of Krishna. And when we study philosophy about the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how he's transcendental, how he's the controller, all of his qualities of mercy, and his seven opulences, and all these different things. This is Swarup Parasya. And then the Tatashta, this is interesting, is knowledge of his activities. So we also study his pastimes and his activities. And this is also, in one sense, it's all Swarup, in the sense that it's his all part of his nature. But these are accessory things that help us understand. And if we don't understand the Swarup, if we don't understand Krishna's nature, then even if we hear and recite the pastimes, it won't be as effective. Just like so many people who don't understand the nature of Krishna, and then they jump to the 10th canto and read the Rasa Leela, and they misunderstand because they don't understand the Swarup Lakshana. Then even when they contact the Tatashta Lakshana, Krishna's pastimes, then they misunderstand or they misapply, or there's some offense committed, or there's some incompleteness in that understanding. So therefore, Prabhupada would always say that first you understand the nature of Krishna, then go to the 10th canto. First you read Bhagavatam through all the 9 cantos to understand Krishna. And then when you get to the 10th canto and you have that foundation, then when you hear his pastimes, it only increases more and more your understanding of Swarupa Parasya, of Krishna's nature. And not only that, it also furthers your understanding of Purushasya Samstanam, your own position as the servant of Krishna. So this is very important, Swarupa Parasya. And for understanding Krishna, Mahaprabhu, he quotes one verse in particular as very important for understanding the nature of Krishna. And that is the very first verse of the Bhagavatam, a verse that very important, I've always loved, and really in one verse gives you such a complete understanding of Krishna. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratas charteshwa bigya swarat tene brahma hridaya adi kavaye muyanti yatsuraya tejo vari mridam yata vinimayo yatram sargo mrisha damna swena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. This one verse gives so much. Janmadhyasya, Krishna is the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. Anvayadi itaratas, he directly and indirectly is aware of everything in the whole creation. Abhigya, he knows everything. Swarat, and he's completely independent. That means independent means there's no one above him, there's no one controlling him. Tenaye Brahma Hridaya Kavaye, he imparted the transcendental knowledge of the Vedas, which we'll hear about next, directly into the heart of Lord Brahma. Muyanti Yatsuraya, but his external energy is so powerful that everyone, even up to the great demigods, are bewildered by it. Tejovari Mridam Yata Vinanayo, that he Yachachi Sargo Mrisha, that he all the illusions and transformations of this material energy which he creates before us and creates for us to live in are simply an illusion, just like when you in the desert, like if you look in the desert and you see water and you think, oh, there's water, but there's no water. It's just the interaction of Tejo Vari Mrid. It's the interaction of the heat of the sun and the temperature of the land and the air above it and the reflections. So this is illusion, this material world. And not only that, Damna Swena Sada Nirastakuvakam, and yet he exists eternally in his own transcendental abode of Goloka Vrindavan, not mentioned by name there, but leading up to it in the 10th canto, his own transcendental abode, which has none of these contaminations of material energy or Maya. Satyam Param Dhimahi. Therefore, I meditate on the supreme absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. So this is Swarup Parasya. This is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And understanding this and understanding our own nature is Sambandha Gyan, which is the foundation that allows us to actually engage in devotional service. So that brings us to the next question. So we want to understand ourselves, and we want to understand Krishna. Where does that knowledge come from? Question 3, Jnanam Nigama. Nigama means the books of knowledge, the Shastra, the Vedic knowledge. Here Prabhupada translates as the Upanishads, but Nigama refers to all of the Vedic knowledge coming from Krishna. Nigama, the root of it is Ni and Gama. Ni means downward or below or descending, that prefix Ni. And Gama, like Gamana, means to walk or to travel or to move. So Nigama means that knowledge which is descending from above, descending from Krishna and coming down to us. This is Nigama. This is the Vedic knowledge. And this is why it's perfect knowledge, because it's coming from above. It's not the product of some speculative endeavor or theoretical knowledge or made up so-called knowledge. It's descending from Krishna. Nigama Kalpa Taror Galita Palam. And specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam, and specifically knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself as Krishna, as described in the Bhagavatam. This is the ripened fruit of all of the tree of Vedic knowledge, the desire tree of Vedic knowledge. The ripened fruit of that is this Srimad Bhagavatam, which gives us Swarupa Parasya, the actual description, perfect descriptions of Krishna, and perfect understanding of the nature of the living entities. So that means that even if we're devotees, or we think we're devotees, or we're trying to be devotees, but if we ignore or don't properly understand the Vedic knowledge, then we will be in some confusion, or we will be in some illusion, or we will make some mistakes or some offenses if we don't take that Vedic knowledge. Therefore, I think this is in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or maybe it's in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, I'm not sure. Shruti, Smriti, Paranadi, Pancharatra Vidim Vina, Akantiki Harer Bhakti, Utpataye Vakalpate. That if you do your devotional service, but you do it Shruti, Smriti, Paranadi, Pancharatra, Vidim Vina. Vidi means the instruction, the restrictions, or the regulations, and Vina means without. So if you try to do your devotional service, but without the direction of Shruti, Smriti, Paranadi, Pancharatra, without the Shruti, without the Smriti, without the original Vedas, the Upanishads, without the Smriti, like Srimad Bhagavatam and Puranas and Ramayana and all of these things, and the Pancharatras, the guides for how to worship. If we do it without that, then Akaintaki Harer Bhaktir Utpataye Vakalpate. Then our performance of devotional service will simply be a disturbance. If you do it Vidi Vina, without that direction of the scripture, then it's Utpataya. Utpatayati, the verb form of that word, means to break or to disturb or to uproot something. So this will disturb and uproot your devotional service if you don't study the Vedas and follow the injunctions of the Vedas. So why is the Vedic knowledge so perfect? Like I said, it's descending. Descending from where? We said earlier how the living entities are sometimes referred to as Purusha. Prabhupada said that the Shastra is known as Apurusheya, that it doesn't come from any jiva, ordinary jiva, who is sometimes called Purusha. It doesn't come from any mundane person. It's Apurusheya. It doesn't come from any mundane person. It comes from someone who is nothing like the other ordinary persons. It comes from the supreme transcendental person. Prabhupada would sometimes translate Apaurushaya as superhuman. So the Shastras have a superhuman, a transhuman source from the transcendental, absolute, supreme personality of Godhead, who is full in all opulences and all knowledge and all perfection, as we heard. And it's all Poroshea, so therefore it is completely absent, or completely absent from it are the imperfections that cover that infiltrate all other books and knowledge and speculation and study. This Brahma, Pramada, Vipralipsa, Karana Patala, the tendency to be an illusion, the tendency to cheat, the tendency to have imperfect senses, and the tendency to make mistakes. Because the Shastras are apaurushaya, because they come from Krishna, from Parasya. It's completely devoid of those imperfections. Therefore, Shastra is the source of perfect knowledge. So if we want to understand Krishna, if we want to understand ourselves, if we want to understand this world around us, we need to do it through Shastra. And if we neglect, then we won't be able to. Which leads us to the fourth question that Vidura asks. What is the nature of Guru Shishya Prayojanam? You may think, oh, I have Shastra. I have my source of knowledge. I don't need anything else. So this is incorrect understanding. Mahabharata says, Tarko Pratishta Shutaya Vibhina. Shutaya Vibhina, that the Shastra is very vast and very multifarious, multifaceted, and covers so many things. And Tarko Pratishta. And if you argue about it, it's inconclusive. Because the Shastra is so varied and so complex. That's why so many people who claim to be following the Vedas are actually, the Vedic literature is like 97% karma kanda. How to get a wife, how to rule a kingdom, how to go to the heavenly planets, how to get wealth, how to get this, how to do this sacrifice, that sacrifice. Then another couple of few percent is jnana kanda. Gives a little bit of knowledge in a incomplete way often on the transcendental nature of the absolute truth, not always stressing his personality. And then only a small percent left over is actually Bhakti Shastra, actually giving true knowledge about the supreme personality of Godhead Krishna. This is why we've heard so many times, Vyasadeva compiled all the Vedas and even Mahabharata, but he was unsatisfied. And Narada pointed out this is why. Because you've made all these Shastras, and great as they are, they don't exclusively and concentratedly, focused in a focused way, describe and glorify the supreme personality of Godhead himself exclusively. So that's one point, that the Shastra are variegated, and without guidance, we can very easily be misled. Nasavri Shir Yasya Matam Nabinam, the verse goes on, that there's so many different rishis, so many sages, so many gurus, so many acharyas, so many pseudo-acharyas, and each of them has a different opinion. Especially, not only, actually, I say especially nowadays, but always back in ancient times in India also, unless you came up with a new theory, a new vad, therefore there's the Sad Darshan, the 6 different philosophies. Unless you come up with some new idea, some new philosophy, no one will respect you as a sage. And in scholarship and in academia today, if you just say, oh, I agree with such and such philosopher, that's no big deal. But if someone says, oh, I've come up with my new philosophy, then he'll get the grants, then he'll get published, then he'll get the worship, whatever. Just like when when Mahaprabhu was talking with, was it Vallabha? Who said, oh, I've made a new commentary on the Bhagavatam that surpasses the commentary of Sridhar Swami. And And Mahaprabhu did not appreciate that at all. And this is a case of that. Here's some rishi who wants to come up with a new idea and surpass the previous acharyas. So he said, I've made a commentary better than Sridhar Swami's. And Mahaprabhu, in a joking way, he kind of insulted him. He said, oh, you've given up the Swami? And he said, I consider that person who rejects his Swami to be a prostitute. Just like a wife, the Swami means Sridhar Swami. Swami also means the husband. So he's making a little bit of a joke that if the woman who rejects her husband is like a loose woman or a prostitute. So indirectly, he's criticizing Vallabha that, oh, you want to surpass Sridhar Swami. This is not very good. So therefore, and what's the conclusion? Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. If we want tattvam, dharmasya tattvam, if we want the knowledge, the truth of our constitutional position, yes, the knowledge is there in the Shastra, but where do we find it? Nihitam guhayam, we find it in the heart of the self-realized living and self-realized devotees. That's where we actually find it. The knowledge does come from the Shastra, and we have to study Shastra. But to actually receive that, to have that knowledge imparted to us, it's given to us through the heart, from the secret, it's not secret, but confidential knowledge in the heart of the great devotees. Mahajano yena gata sapanta. Therefore, we always follow the path of the Mahajans. So this is this interaction of Vedic knowledge and the guru-disciple relationship. Without the guru, you'll understand the Shastric knowledge. And if your guru or so-called guru is not steeped in and educated in and absorbed in the Vedic knowledge, then also he won't be able to teach you. They both have to work together, go together. Like Prabhupada told, I think I've told this before also. Prabhupada said, so-called gurus or so-called scholars who so-called study the Vedic literatures, but don't actually understand it. It said, this is a Hindi saying, Sat Kanda Ramayana Pare Sita Kahar Baba. Forgive if I'm mangling the Hindi there. Prabhupada said, Sat Kanda Ramayana Pare. That someone says, I have read all the chapters of the Ramayana. I've studied the Ramayana so deeply, every word, every chapter, I know it backwards and forward and left to right and right to left and up and down. I know the whole Ramayana, but Pare Sita Kahar Baba, but I have just one question. Who is Sita's father? So you can imagine someone's is supposed to be a big scholar of Ramayana, but he doesn't know who Maharaj Janaka is, then we can understand he's actually not a scholar of the Ramayana. Similarly, if someone says, oh, I've read Bhagavad Gita, I've studied Srimad Bhagavatam, I've done this, but we shouldn't surrender to Krishna, but we should surrender to the unborn within Krishna, as Prabhupada said, quoting the former president of India, right? Dr. Radhakrishnan. We don't surrender to Krishna, we surrender to the unborn Krishna. So this is someone respected as a political leader, as a scholar, but showing his complete ignorance of the Vedic conclusion. So all of this has to go together. This word nigama is used to describe the Vedic knowledge. So I'll read again that nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, the third verse of the entire work. Nigama kalpa taror galitam palam, sukamukad amrita drava samyutam, pibita bhagavatam rasamalayam, mahor aho rasika bhuvi bhavuka. This verse perfectly describes the interaction between the Shastric knowledge and the qualified person who is transmitting the Shastric knowledge so that the disciple will actually understand it. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literature. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami, Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So hearing from the proper guru makes that Vedic knowledge more digestible, more tasteful, more delicious, and easier to read, and easier to understand, and easier to assimilate. Prabhupada writes later in the purport. In Sanskrit, the parrot is known as shuka, like Shukadev Goswami. When a ripened fruit is cut by the red beaks of such birds, its sweet flavor is enhanced. The Vedic fruit, which is mature and ripe in knowledge, is spoken through the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami, who is compared to the parrot not for his ability to recite the Bhagavatam exactly as he heard it from his learned father, but for his ability to present the work in a manner that would appeal to all classes of men. So this is how the Vedic knowledge and the authorized teacher of Vedic knowledge interact. And of course, we see that in Srila Prabhupada, who took this same eternal spiritual Vedic knowledge and he brought it to the lowest place in the world and taught it to the lowest people in the world and elevated them and made them into devotees. A little bit more, let's see. The ripened fruit is not dropped all of a sudden from the highest planet of Krishna Loka. Rather, it has come down carefully through the chain of disciplic succession without change or disturbance. Foolish people who are not in the transcendental disciplic succession commit great blunders by trying to understand the highest transcendental rasa, known as the rasa dance, without following in the footsteps of Shukadev Goswami, who presents this fruit very carefully by stages of transcendental realization. So this is the beautiful interaction of these four questions, which Vidura asked Maitreya. What is the knowledge of ourselves and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. We are his eternal servants. And we get that knowledge from the Vedic literature that teaches us all about our own nature and Krishna's pastimes and the activities of his devotees and so much brilliant philosophy. And to understand that perfectly, we hear it from the self-realized soul who has himself imbibed that knowledge and is able to not just blindly parrot it like a recording machine, just vomit it back out. If some of us may remember back in our school days, you would memorize something and then the teacher would ask, and then even without understanding, you would just repeat the same words back and hope to get a passing grade. But it's not like that. It's from the realized deep understanding and living a life based on those principles of devotional service. And then you could transmit that to another soul who can then benefit from it. So in conclusion, there's many different ways of analyzing and categorizing the process of devotional service. We can talk about Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha, and we could talk about Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, all these different tools for analyzing the process of devotional service. But I think these four questions presented here, this idea of Sambandha Gyan and where do we get our knowledge from, are also really important tools for analyzing what is the nature of devotional service, for analyzing, am I practicing devotional service properly? Am I understanding and not just understanding theoretically, understanding and living my position as the servant of Krishna, understanding Krishna's nature in all of its facets as far as we can? Are we studying the Vedic literatures, and are we doing it under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada's purports and other advanced devotees, knowledgeable devotees and friends who are also studying with us and educating us? So that's why I enjoyed these four questions and like this section so much. It brings out so much. So thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. If there's any questions or comments or discussion, we can do that now.
Haribol Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I was just thinking you were talking about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. In this verse, it is translated activities. So, can you explain a little bit?
Um, I'm not sure. In today's verse, it was translated how?
Activities, something like that.
Let's call up the verse and look at it. What are the truths regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are their identities? I'm not sure. Or is it in the purport that you're thinking of? Can you clarify for me what you're referring to? I'm not sure. Hello? I'm sorry, Mother Golokananda. Can you clarify
So
that for
word
me,
to
please?
word translation, Prabhu. Word to word translation.
Word for word, okay.
Mm.
Uh, of the living entity, existence, identity. Are you seeing what you're looking for?
The last one, Prayojanam.
Prayojanam, necessity. I think my understanding is that the use of the word prayojanam is not there as part of Sambandha Abhide Prayojana, but prayojanam also means the necessity or the conclusion or the purpose of something. So I think it's talking about the necessity of the guru and disciple relationship. And I think what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciples? So prayojana has a technical meaning as part of Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana, and it also has a generic meaning as the necessity of something or the conclusion of something. Is that useful at all?
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I was
Okay.
just thinking because you were talking about this free, Sambandha, Abhideya.
Yeah.
It's part of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think, or I'm not certain that the word prayojanam there necessarily relates to Sambandha Abhideya and Prayojana. It just means the necessity or the perfection of something. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Question or comment? No? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kind attention. It's always a pleasure to associate with the Philadelphia devotees. I hope everything is going well there.
Thank you. Thank you, Acharya Prabhu.
My
Wonderful
pleasure. Thank you,
class.
Jonah.
I had no questions, but I just wanted to comment that it was, just really good information that you were able to explain. Very clear. I took a lot away from this, so thank you.
Thank you. You're very kind. Okay, everybody have a